Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting...
They tossed the dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me. So happy together, so happy together. And how is the weather? So happy together, we're happy together, so happy together.
On this episode of Nostalgia Marcana, we're going to find out exactly what our guest means. Do we know what he means? Do we know what anything really means? We're talking about Ernest Goes to Camp today, a classic piece of 80s cinema from a very oddball character that is kind of in the same species as a lot of these grown-up half-cartoon man-children like Pee Wee Herman and Mr. Bean. But Ernest is kind of a super American version all its own. And if you're too young to remember Ernest, we're going to have a fun time revisiting this character today. But with me to do it is if I'm Ernest, he's Vern. And although you'll be hearing a lot more of him than Vern, he's been on our past podcasts, including Blazing Saddles, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Fallen Angels. Please welcome back to the podcast, Tarik Davis.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Man, it's good to see you. And I forgot, of course, to mention some of the cool things you're working on. Before we get going, you can see him perform with Freestyle Love Supreme. If you're in the New York area, that's SOUP Supreme. You've seen him on NBC's The Amber Ruffin Show. And, of course, you've got your short film going now. So tell the audience about that.
Yeah. About this time last year, my partner and I, Laura, we made a short film called Doc, Race, Revolution, Relativity, and the Confessions of a Time-Traveling Terrorist. Bit of a mouthful of a title, but provocative for necessary reasons. And yeah, we've been doing the festival run and had some success with that, and I got a nice nomination as a breakout actor in the Festival of New York Cinema. And yeah, it's something I'm really proud of. It's part of a larger story, and if we're lucky enough, we'll get to tell that story. But things seem to be moving ahead nicely, so yeah.
That's awesome, man. Nobody deserves it more. I'm really excited for you, and I hope it picks up and goes places.
Thank you.
So this podcast came about because I think you tweeted something to the effect of like, this movie is true cinema or something like that. I forget exactly what you said, but you were unironically praising the shit out of it. And,
yeah, I believe I said it was a cinematic masterpiece.
Correct. Yeah, yes, that was it. So tell us your nostalgic memories of the film and why you think that.
Well, this film came out, at the perfect time for me. As a child of the '80s, I think I was in fourth or fifth grade when this came out, and that's a perfect age for a camp movie anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember seeing this movie and we just it was a source of endless joy. And I instantly fell in love with the Ernest persona and Jim Varney's performance because I was a big fan of the man-child phenomenon anyway. Like Pee Wee Herman was an idol and Ernest filled that second slot. There was Ed Grimley. There was, you mentioned Mr. Bean.
There's one more big one I know.
Beekman's World, the scientist Beekman. I would even throw Bill Nye in there, even though he's probably a little bit more mature. There was, it was something for whatever reason, you put a man-child adult in a film with kids and let the hijinks begin. I'm in, and at a young age, these kids who are on the wrong side of the tracks, and has that kind of Revenge of the Nerds feel of like the outsiders get you know um who no one likes, but they end up winning at the end, and like all those things, all those ingredients make for a film that I'm going to be a fan of. But after watching it recently, and I'm like, oh, this film really holds up, and it goes to some emotional places, and uh, the whole indigenous angle is, I think, a lesser film could have made it cartoony or hokey or offensive, and I'm like, no, I think this film honors kind of the whole idea of land conservation, anti-capitalist kind of just land grabs, and yeah, really get you rooting for Ernest's character, who becomes kind of this indigenous messiah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I I know I saw this. I didn't see it in the theater. This was a movie that I definitely saw because of my one of my best friend's older brothers. That was
Mm,
one of those like connections of like, hey, I got a movie to show you two youngsters. And I remember us quoting it after that, doing bits to each other, just thinking it was really funny. I'm trying to remember if I had any exposure to the Ernest character because this is the first Ernest movie, but the character was developed as he was in commercials, like he was an advertising character
yeah.
that like ran all over the country in various
Hmm.
places, and then he had a Saturday morning TV show, which I do remember watching. I don't think
Yep.
I watched it before the movie,
Yeah, and
but
I remember
yeah.
the theme song like, "Hey Vern, I'm on TV." Like, this is really.
Hey, Vern, today's your lucky day. We knew you wouldn't want to oversleep, Vern. We only do it once a week, Vern. Me and all the other guys, Vern. We even brought the pies, Vern. It's the Ernest P. Worrell with a story and a moral and a big chuckle, hip trip, double dip, super supreme show. You know what I mean? No! Hey, Vern, we moved your furniture and now we're gonna fire up the barbecue, Vern. We owe it all to you, Vern. But now you gotta move, Vern. Hey, Vern! Hey, Vern! Hey, Vern, it's me. I'm on TV.
If you don't, yeah, I mean, you'll hear clips of the movie and stuff as we go through the podcast, like always. But if you've never actually experienced Ernest, so it's Jim Varney, who is you'd probably know as the voice of the Slinky Dog from the first two Toy Story movies. Kind of a tall, lanky, rubber-faced guy with this very down south, homespun, gee whiz kind of affectation,
Hmm.
and like a cartoon character, like a Pee Wee Herman or one of these other people, like he has a uniform. Like you
Yes.
unless the plot calls for him to wear something else, he's always wearing a gray shirt, a denim vest, jeans, and like kind of a like olive green trucker hat.
Yeah. Very simple, very identifiable. I think the thing that I've seen a few specials actually on Jim Varney. And one of the things that's interesting is like, the dude wasn't just a stand-up comedian, like he was classically trained actor, like knew his stuff. And yeah, this film, it was the beginning outside of the commercials. This film then led to springboarded a bunch of Ernest-led vehicles, from Ernest Goes to Camp to Ernest Saves Christmas to Ernest Goes to Prison. Like those are my three favorites. Like, and I think Ernest Saves Halloween is also a strong.
It's Ernest Scared Stupid, I think
Yeah,
is the
scared stupid. Yeah, scared stupid. Yeah.
yeah, there's a bunch of these this character, and he continued to appear in commercials and things for well into the 90s. Like the character lasted for a while.
Yeah.
Um, and you can tell like Jim, like it's one of those things where like it is very stupid and broad on its surface, but to do that well actually is a science unto itself.
Yes, it is.
And like you can't just have any idiot do this and make it work. Like he's he's one of these guys that's super good at physical comedy. And I saw as I was researching, like he claimed to have like an eidetic memory or something close to it, that like the guys who worked with him when they created the character and started doing these commercials, he'd do like he'd shoot like 25 commercials in a day, Like they would just
Yeah.
give him the copy, he'd read it and go like, "Yep, got it," and then he would just go shoot a commercial.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he was a pretty remarkable guy from like, the stories you hear from people. Very interesting guy. One of those people you wish was kind of still around so he could receive the proper appreciation.
I'm
I
I'm
think
glad, yeah, he had that second act with at least with the Toy Story franchise.
and Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he played Jed Clampett in the film version of Beverly Hillbillies.
Yes. Yes.
Which, yeah, that's an obvious fit if ever there was one.
Yeah.
And I one more nostalgic memory I'll share, which is this must have hit me at just the right time because I remember in third grade we were asked to go and write a bunch of our like favorite things. I don't know what the point of this was, but there was something where everyone had to go write down their favorite actor, and I put him down, which meant like this must have been right within the like 2 weeks or something after I saw this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you weren't alone. I'm sure there were a bunch of uh a bunch of other kids who just like, oh no, this is the dude. This is my favorite actor ever. Between him and Paul Rubens, I bet there was like a something. I bet there was like a tie or like a real like a heated competition between kids of who they loved more.
You can tell by the way that like he speaking of kids, like he really likes kids and works well with them. Like the way he interacts with all of the other child actors in this movie, like there's kind of a warmth there you can't fake.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that's really heartening about. I think that's why the film works as well as it does, because you have to buy into that relationship between him and these kids of him like he's such a warm-hearted character that like that's the thing about these like man children. Like Mr. Bean is funny, but he's funny in a very intellectually stupid way. Like you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
there's no warmth. It's all just like his continuing embarrassment of himself.
Yeah.
Whereas like Ernest and like Pee Wee Herman, like it works because they really are not just that they're overgrown children, but they have like the heart of a child.
They have the heart of the child, and they are like Mr. Bean. I never got the sense that it was trying to create a safe space. Like you watch Pee Wee Herman, especially like before Pee Wee's Big Adventure, his HBO comedy special, and that sign off that when he died, Paul Rubens died. I watched him to feel no shame for admitting, got very emotional as he was an early childhood hero. But like they were, and I think why they translate to film so well and why they translate to having shows talking directly to kids is similar to Mr. Rogers, right? Like these aren't just goofy characters. There is a wholesomeness and kind of this mission of creating a space for people to express themselves in a different way, or and today I think that's more important than ever. There's not a lot of that.
And there's a sincerity to this as well, right? It's that
Yes.
like combination of like, hey kids, like being an adult, you could still be one of these adults in a way. Like you don't have to lose your sense of like childlike wonder and like empathy to
Yeah.
because we meet plenty of adults in this film without any of that. And
Yes, we do.
Ernest, like for as much as like people laugh at him and like he is a buffoon, you are still meant to like see him as the hero.
Yes. And I don't know. I think the lawyer character in this is really interesting. And speaking as I'm speaking to a lawyer, I'd be
No,
curious.
yeah, I was in that piqued my interest as well of like watching this guy because he kind of comes around by the end,
Yeah.
and that there's an interesting thing I concept I think he kind of embodies, um,
Mm.
just as like the person who's like, okay, well, I still believe in the rule of law, and like there's only so far you can push things,
Yeah.
you know. Now, granted, the true bad guy really takes it up to 11 in terms of his villainy by the end, but
Yeah.
still, I
The,
think yeah, having the lawyer kind of tap out at a certain point
yeah.
is worthwhile.
Yeah. The villain Sherman Crater, played by the great John Vernon, who many may remember as, the dean from Animal House.
He just came up, believe it or not, Tarik, you haven't heard it yet because this episode hasn't been released as we're recording this. But
Oh wow.
by the time you, the audience, are hearing that, we released an episode on killer clowns from outer space.
That was gonna be my second round. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that movie. It's in our, so you heard it this last October as part of our Halloween lineup. And as I mentioned on that show, he was also the voice of, on Batman the Animated Series. He's one of the crime bosses. I forget who.
Yeah, he's Rupert Thorne.
That's it, Rupert Thorne. There's several crime bosses on that show, but yeah, he's Rupert Thorne.
I also think he was the voice of in the very earliest Iron Man cartoon. I think he's the voice of Tony Stark.
I know he's got some Marvel credits. I forget which ones he has, but yeah, for like Marvel animated stuff.
Yeah. Like
Because I think if you go to his IMDb page, the first thing that comes up is a picture of the Incredible Hulk.
Oh wow.
So he may have worked on that as well. I don't know as what character.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe Thunderbolt Ross. I don't know.
I mean, the guy's got an amazing voice.
Yes, great voice. He also is the bad guy, Mr. Big, and I'm gonna get you, sucker. Like, one of those just like great classically trained actors from yesteryear that was able to transition and poke fun out of his own persona. You had all these actors out of the 40s and 50s with these booming announcer voices, and then and like kind of transition to being, I remember being the character baddie and like episodes of Knight Rider or Greatest American Hero or Rockford Files, or these were working guys.
Yeah, they made the rounds.
And he made his round into Ernest Goes to Camp and brings the same level of intensity to that he would for Jim Rockford to Ernest P. Worrell.
Yeah, no, he plays everything at like deadly serious, in terms of his performance, and you need that as like an anchor for your heavy in the movie. Like if he was as goofy as Ernest was, or some of the other characters around him, like the whole movie would kind of be almost too silly for it to work. But because again, he's just a real like serious, self-serious piece of shit.
Real.
It works.
Absolutely works. He would definitely run for office in the world we live in currently.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. Yeah. All right, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about this movie here, break it down, because we got some fun stuff to cover in this thing. Because like I said, if you haven't seen this in a long time, like I have, it was kind of fun to revisit this and have this all kind of come flooding back, because it's been easily 30 years or more since I've seen this movie. So so we opened many lifetimes ago with this flashback to indigenous Americans performing the ritual of the blade, the rock, and the arrow, which is basically this young brave is tied to a post while the elder member of his tribe first throws a knife at him, then an axe, and then fires an arrow at him, all of which miss. They hit the post, but not him. And we're told that this is the true mark of a warrior. If you're brave and true and honest and all that, the projectiles will miss.
I will tell you right now that I am not a warrior. I would not have passed that test. I would not have signed up for such a test.
It's a bigger test of the guy throwing the stuff in a way that it is the guy on the other end. Because if you throw a knife at your young tribesman there and you hit him square in the torso, that's more on you than on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real. I mean, this is the grandest version of the trust fall game I've ever seen.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we transition from this ritual to this symbol, which then becomes the logo of present day Camp Kikakee, where most of the action is set. And we meet Ernest, who is teaching us about safety first.
When one is doing dangerous work, one must pay careful attention to the safety of one's body. Know what I mean? But one day, I'll be a camp counselor, and I'll be running this place. I'll be shaping and molding youthful minds into a focused worldview. Yep, Ernest P. Worrell, camp counselor. An extraordinary thing to witness.
As he's talking to us, the audience. Like, this is an Ernest staple that he is monologuing to camera. In this case, it's not. I don't think he mentions Vern in this movie, although like that's normally the thing. He's like, "Hey, Vern, know what I mean?" Like he's
Yeah.
talking to Vern, who is basically the camera. Here, he's talking to no one, maybe us, but he's definitely talking to camera about like his bit is that he's sort of he seems like he's a know-it-all. Like he likes to think he's very smart.
It's really endearing. Every time Ernest goes on, he wants to, he so wants to prove himself and prove his knowledge. It's when I was a kid, I just thought it was funny because it was usually the setup for, once he starts explaining something, it's a setup for, well, now watch him fail at it. And now watching it as an adult, I only feel like my heart goes out to the guy because I know I've been in that position, or that somebody and they're just like, oh man, you're really trying to impress and make an impression, especially with these kids, and you keep failing. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's so endearing.
He's not bluffing. Like he's not like pretending to be knowledgeable about a subject. He sincerely believes he knows what he's talking about, but he just fails. And we've all been in that position where it's like, I'm going to show you how this is done. I know exactly what to do, and then somehow it blows up in your face.
Yeah.
And that's what this is over and over again. Is he's up on top of a ladder. He's like kind of tying a rope to the ladder, but also like kind of cutting the rope, and he's jumping sideways until he starts tipping backwards, and he realizes since he's cut the rope, there's now nothing to hold him, so he just topples backwards onto the ground,
making a very funny Ernest P. Worrell. Hey, just like
yeah, he does this thing where like his jaw moves back and forth real cartoonishly. Like that's like a signature.
Yeah.
I
again could watch his movies all day.
So he's driving this. We're getting our title cards and stuff as he's driving a cart with his feet. This little like motorized golf cart thing. He's just knocking stuff over, and he goes off into a bathroom to plunge a toilet. And when he walks away, the cart drives away by itself, which I love this as a dumb running gag that like every once in a while in the movie, the cart just drives, but it's continuing to just drive by the camp. This will actually become plot important later, which was the smart move. Screenwriting 101. So like, and we just get a sense that like this is again like Ernest kind of slapsticky stuff. He tries to plunge this toilet. He's shoving the toilet down, or the plunger so far down that like it defies physics. Like it shouldn't be able to go that far down into the thing.
Yeah.
It must be it must be like a trick plunger with like a telescoping thing to do this.
Yeah. Must have been.
Yeah.
Ernest affects the physics of his reality isn't the reality of the world he's living in.
That's a good, he is a cartoon.
Is more tuned, to reference our last podcast of Roger Rabbit. I think Ernest is more tuned than he is human being, but he happens to live in a human being world.
Yeah, this is our third podcast essentially where cartoons intrude on human life between this and Roger Rabbit and Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
A lot of just cartoon logic wrecking the world around it. So the toilet, like he finally is like, I'm just gonna pull this thing out, and then just like a jet of water shoots him up off, out of frame. So now we get kids arriving at the camp, and this is just kind of general scenes of everybody having a good time, and we see that like Ernest gets no respect because like the kids like slam the window of the bus on his fingers.
Yes.
And just leave him like stuck there with his fingers slammed in the window.
The kids are unnecessarily mean to Ernest. Unnecessarily mean. Like it's not like he's a mean counselor or teacher, or he's giving these kids everything he's got and they just constantly piss on him. And it's just
it is it's a little depressing. Like as you said, like he doesn't have it coming. Like he doesn't have a mean bone in his body, they just
no.
some of the kids at this camp suck. We'll meet some of them in a little while. But so everybody gets introduced to like a great summer by this like head counselor, the guy in charge of the camp. He tells them all about they're going to be tested like the natives of old, and there's going to be this ceremony of the blade, the stone, and the arrow at the end of the summer. And then Ernest gets free from the bus, and all the luggage on top of it falls on him. Again, like shit rolls downhill on Ernest all the time.
Yes. For whatever reason, the universe has it out for this man, this sweet, innocent man.
Yeah. So Ernest is now after some more like kind of shots of just like kids having fun and it's camp time. He's out working on the lifeguard stand, and he's greeted by Miss St. Cloud, who is the daughter of Chief St. Cloud. They are the last two of this tribe. They own the land. Or specifically, I think her grandfather, the elder one, owns the land. She just works as a physician on site in the infirmary. And this whole thing of like Ernest with the lifeguard stand in this moment, like it's so much about, again, like his claimed expertise. Like he always kind of goes into this loftier mode of talking as he describes what he's doing.
Morning, Ernest.
Oh, hi, Miss St. Cloud. The sun rides high in its path across the heavens. Where is the red chaise lounge?
Ernest, what I came down here for
is... engineering your lifeguard stand is an important business. You have got to figure your angles just right. Of course, I won't always be fixing things around here. One day, I will be a full-fledged counselor. I have learned all the steps in the path of the brave. I have memorized the handbook, and I learned the Kikakee sign language. If only they'd give a fella a chance.
I'm sure they will, Ernest.
Nuh-uh.
But the real reason I'm here is to see if you've gotten all your shots.
Shots? Yeah. Okay.
It's so interesting when and like, it, no matter what movie, whether it's, he does it here a lot, but like, he gets into this philosophical way of speaking. And like, it's, it's very, it's gotta be a choice that comes from Jim Varney. But yeah, almost like, the voiceover you would hear in one of those old fashioned nature documentaries, like where you hear the Greek name or the Latin name of the creature first, Chitaris Cataris, like, and he takes on this affectation, and it's like the films are just a series of pratfall sketches, and the setup is always the same. Like he becomes this, like you said, higher, lofty, almost nose in the air, professorial kind of know-it-all that will always get hoisted up by his own petard. But there's no petard. Like it's not like he's not an arrogant. So like, I guess it works because it's so cartoony.
I mean, it's you're blowing up the balloon to then pop it every time. And but I think some of the stuff that befalls him is kind of mean-spirited in a way, but I would say the film works because it's like they're making deposits in a bank with this that will pay off when things go well for Ernest.
Absolutely. That's a great way to say it. And it's my reason for calling this a cinematic masterpiece is that intention. And we're not at the scene yet, but there's a moment where it's like, oh, okay, this is not just a fake movie. It's got some real heart and some real emotion behind it.
Well, one of the things that kind of supports that is right here in this scene, because he's talking to her and asking how her grandfather, the chief, is doing, and he is using these kind of sign language to show he has actually made an effort to try and learn how to communicate in their native language. And he's the only one in the entire camp. None of the counselors, none of the kids. Like, it's only Ernest who is actually bothered to try and learn this because he cares. Like, he's a caring individual.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like that's one of those like emotional beats that actually is kind of like, especially when it starts to pay off later, is like, okay, like he actually is doing his best to make the world a better place, even though he's failing. Like, he cares.
Yeah, he cares. But like all the adults at the camp care. And the film, I think there's a meta message to the film that it doesn't quite beat over the head, but like the kids are throwaways. The indigenous owners of the camp are throwaways. Ernest himself is a throwaway. And Ernest seems to be very conscious of it. Like, hey, we've all been tossed out. We are considered what is worthless or what is to be built over or left behind. And yeah, it's again, doesn't really beat that message over the audience's head, but it's really clear in those moments where you see Ernest trying to communicate with Old Man St. Cloud, with how he treats his daughter, the respect he gives her, and like, you know, I feel like any other character, like if this was like Bill Murray's character from Caddyshack, it would get creepy. You know, like he'd hit on her or something like that. But Ernest is a really respectful gentleman, you know, caretaker of children. And I don't think that's by accident.
No. So St. Cloud leads him to the infirmary and gives him this giant shot. We see that he's not a big fan of these.
How's that grandfather of yours nowadays? I haven't seen him around lately.
Oh, he's out at his place. I worry about him sometimes. He's so old. But these woods are his home.
Yeah, he's a wise man. Doesn't believe in modern things like shots.
That's right. He lives by the old ways. In fact, he thinks I'm wasting time studying medicine.
Shouldn't you have a little more practice before you go around sticking needles in people?
I've had lots of practice. If I keep doing it, I might even get good at it.
See, cold, wet nose, color's good. No fever.
Well, come on now, Ernest. You know this isn't going to hurt much.
I can take it, Miss St. Cloud. Real men can take it, and I'm a real man. A man with a hearty smile, a stout back, with grit in his teeth and nails in his knuckles. A man who has never tasted quiche. Is that your smallest needle? I did it! I took the Lindbergh, baby! I am Joseph Mengele! Oh!
Some of the, like, things he exclaims after getting the shot, this feels improvised to me, or there's, you know, 1,000 takes of this, because he screams, I took the Lindbergh, baby, I am Joseph Mengele. Like two references that like went way over my head at like 8 years old. Like, I didn't know who either of those people were.
And now that you know them, that makes them even that much more hilarious. Like,
yeah, really weird references, but like it's just a funny idea of like, who knows how many of those. It's like the 40-year-old virgin, like when he screams Kelly Clarkson as he's getting his chest hair ripped off.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, Ernest is comedically just as endowed as Steve Carell, you know, like he's that you know, there's a depth there of comedic knowledge and timing.
Yeah. So now we have a meeting amongst the counselors, and they talk about what has been referred to as Operation Second Chance, which is basically they're going to take these kids from this boys' home, and they get to come and spend the summer at Camp Kikakee as well. And so they're just sort of generally talking logistics, like, okay, which of the counselors is going to take these kids? Nobody wants the assignment, of course, because they are the Bad News Bears. And they tell Ernest to go pick them up at the home, or whatever you want to call it. And so we go to the Mid-State Home for Boys, you know, the Arkham Asylum of this universe, to get these kids. And this is where we get the first look at this roster of our primary kid characters from the quote unquote from the wrong side of the tracks.
Yes.
Report immediately to the exercise yard.
Hi, fellas. You ready for your big summer of learning the ways of the forest and the path of the brave and that sort of thing?
If you ask me, this second chance stuff is a total waste of time, Mr.
Worrell. Ernest P. Worrell.
I don't envy whoever has to look after this bunch of punks. They're trouble all the way.
My motto is, I never met a bad kid.
Then let me introduce you to some. These misfits were selected by their ward officers as those most in need of help. This is the ringleader, Bobby Wayne. He's been in and out of institutions like this since he was 11.
Since I was 9.
And this is Crutchfield, 12 years old and already a master thief.
It's like a gift or something.
Thanks.
Here's Danny Simpson. He comes from a long line of troublemakers.
It's a family tradition. I've got a reputation to uphold.
And the Albert Einstein of this institution, Chip Osgood. Butch Too Cool Vargas.
Hey, Moose! Hurry up, man!
It's Mustafa, the runt of the litter. I told you it's dangerous to run with things in your mouth.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Well, all aboard that's going ashore.
And one of those kids is an actor who has led a very successful career as an actor. The kid who plays Bubba Vargas is played by actor Jacob Vargas, who you have seen in multiple films. He's been in Steven Soderbergh's Traffic. He was played Joker in Next Friday. I've seen him. He was in Luke Cage, the TV show, one of the gangsters in that. He was in 2 seasons of Sons of Anarchy. He's played Richard Chavez opposite Michael Pena in the biopic of Cesar Chavez. He's just a working act. He was on the television version of Dusk Till Dawn as one of the the hero of that show. Yeah, I remember seeing recently watching, but oh yeah, that kid, I know him. Really good actor, and happy somebody out of this film made good.
Yeah, I didn't check everybody's IMDb to see if they went on to do anything in particular. And so yeah, we do meet our kids here. So we've got Bobby the ringleader, Crutchfield the master thief, who hands Ernest his wallet, even though he never got within 10 feet of Ernest, which is amazing. Danny Simpson, who just comes from a long line of troublemakers. Osgood, the genius of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Vargas, as you said, and then the littlest one, Moose, or Mustafa is his name. But yeah, this kid who's a good 5-6 years younger than the rest of them, or at least judging by his height.
Yeah, there was. I mean, it's still in that period of the 80s. So Different Strokes is still in the air. Webster was still in the air. As someone who was an adorable black child and was compared to Webster a lot, it was they would show up in random films every now and again. You'd get this adorable, way too young to be in, way too young for the circumstances, but you get this adorable, little black child. And in this case, our little adorable black child isn't Arnold or Webster, it's Moose.
You're still an adorable black child there.
Thank you. I was fishing.
Yeah. So we meet them all, and Ernest gives them a ride back to the camp, and they play Guess Who by covering his eyes. And what I love about this bit is that the obvious reaction would be, of course, for Ernest to freak out. But instead he's like, oh boy, games. He's I'm gonna, oh gee, is it Vargas? I'm not sure. And he's just trying to guess which one of them it is as he's careening around the road. Because he's a big kid. This is fun to him.
Yes. And danger does not enter the equation.
No, he's indestructible anyway.
Yes.
I mean, he's a human. If you haven't seen it, in Ernest Goes to Jail, he is subjected to the electric chair, and instead of dying, he has the superpower where when you electrocute him, he just absorbs the electricity and then can fire back.
Becomes Electroman.
Yeah. So yeah, literally unkillable. Ernest does not worry about traffic accidents.
No, and the one time he seems to lose his cool, Ernest Saves Christmas, is riding Santa's sleigh. I forget, for whatever reason, the reindeers lose their flying power and they're crashing, about to crash on, into the ground. And right before they hit the ground, they stop, and Ernest looks at the camera and says, "Air brakes." And I remember as a kid, that was the funniest damn line I had ever heard. And now as an adult, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense, but it's still hilarious. The delivery is still hilarious, and
Yeah.
Ernest is still indestructible. He's a superhero.
Yeah, and again, probably one of those moments where again, like he's got certain like gears he shifts into. One is that professorial gear we've been talking about. Another one is the like playing it cool, like
Yeah.
everything's fine.
Yeah.
That's another one for him.
Yeah.
But here, so they get to the end of the bus ride. He rear ends one of the buses at the last second, and like topples out of the bus door backwards. Like lands flat on his back, and the kids all get out, and the counselors immediately tell the kids they need to line up, so they all put their hands like they're being arrested, against
Yeah.
the bus.
Yeah. Not a cool image. Not a cool thing to do to kids, but I've seen it happen.
I think it's supposed to convey that these kids have done this before. This is what they're
Yes.
used to.
Oh yeah. No, it's another subtle, it could be played for a joke, but it's actually cuts a lot deeper.
Yeah. And so the counselor tells Ernest he's disappointed in him, and this actually really kind of breaks his heart a little bit, because what we found out is like his one dream is to be a camp counselor, like modest goal in life if ever there was one.
Modest goal. This guy, again, my heart goes out to him. I don't know if we're there yet, but they briefly show what his living situation is. The only friend he talks to is a turtle. Like this guy doesn't have much in life, and you realize, like, you can't help but to like start putting the pieces together. I'm like, wait, this guy's a maintenance guy on a seasonal camp. Like, where are you coming from? What is going on in your life where your aspiration is like, man, if I make it to be one of those camp counselors, I got it made. Like, oof.
Yeah. You know what the other man child is that just came to mind, because is Stanley Spadowski from UHF.
Yeah.
Similar
Absolutely.
mode. And same thing, right? He's a janitor that, like, his aspiration is to be a janitor who he ends up becoming a TV star. But
yeah. Stanley, oh man, I totally forgot about. And that was Michael Richards, like Kramer, like pre-Kramer, who in another is more of a, I guess it's kind of a more sophisticated man child, but still like isn't too many shades off of the Pee Wee Herman, Mr. Bean realm.
Yeah. So the kids are taken to their home away from home, which is a dilapidated bunk, and they're told fix it up in 10 minutes, which is impossible. And then they have to go to the mess hall, where we get kind of a classic, like, Moose gets tripped by one of the kids, which results in a food fight. Ernest steps in to try and break up the fight. Most of the kids just start beating him with the trays, which is pretty brutal. And again, cartoon stuff. One person like slaps a tray over, and it like conforms to his face.
Yes. Again, the filmmakers they always keep in mind out. They're like, oh, we're gonna beat the crap out of Ernest, but we're gonna do it in a way where you don't feel so sorry for him, like, because we're gonna show you he's indestructible. Oh, look, this Looney Tunes trick where, like you said, the tray conforms to his face, or if he gets injured, he's wrapped up, instead of like on just a small cast, he's wrapped up like a mummy, or like he is a zany, indestructible, sad Southern man.
Yeah. Also, like, to get his face out of the thing, they hit him in the face with a frying pan, which works, but that knocks him back into a Coke machine, which then falls on him. I should mention Coke was one of the companies that Ernest did commercials for.
Yes. And I'm sure they sponsored this film, and now we know where the film's budget comes from.
I missed a step here. So in between the kids arriving at the mess hall and then the fight at the mess hall, we meet Jake and Eddie in the kitchen. These like two like SCTV characters, basically.
Yes.
and they are trying to develop a recipe for what is referred to in the film as eggs erroneous.
Yes. And I don't know which one, the bigger guy. He
I think that's
appears
Jake.
Jake, yeah, he appears in multiple Ernest films. His partner does switch up though. Like his partner in this film is different, whereas in like Ernest goes to prison, and I think Ernest saves Christmas, but like Jake is teamed up with this kind of really skinny, small, almost mute Don Knotts looking kind of guy, whose name is escaping me at the moment. But yeah, they make kind of a Laurel and Hardy kind of pair. Also zany in a different way.
And they kind of pair with Ernest in that you get that like they're on the lower rung of the camp.
Yes.
Like Ernest might be the lowest rung, but they're the second lowest, and so they're kind of buddy to a degree. And the thing that Jake does, so this is just a stupid human trick that he can do, but this guy is capable of making his eyeballs go back and left and right inhumanly fast. It's really unsettling.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Ernest mentioned something about yellow modeling clay, and I think that's the secret ingredients to making eggs erroneous is to add yellow modeling clay to this recipe. Like, you don't know what this egg dish is. They mentioned things like Tibetan spices and stuff. Like, it's just this mythical, impossible food that sounds like it's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it doesn't sound delicious at all. And these are not your the most sanitary looking cooks. These are not the people you actually want preparing your food.
No, everything they make is like slop.
Yes. And so someone greenlit this. Someone was like, these are the two adults that need to be in charge of the children's nutrition day in, day out for the duration of the camp. Some brilliant decisions being made.
Mm-hmm. So the kids are sent to go ditch digging because, of course, the bad news bears here are our kids are the ones that get punished, even though they're not the instigators of the fight.
Yeah.
This happens a lot where they pay the price undeservedly. And so we go back to the kitchen then, which is why I'm glad I set that up. So yeah, these guys try to get Ernest to eat this current draft of eggs erroneous, which they try to, there's a little bit of like this duck season, rabbit season thing as they try to force him to eat it. They finally get a spoon in his mouth, and then Ernest just runs outside to puke it out.
Now, Eddie, if you don't stir it, it'll clot on you.
Something burning?
Here, look what I got for
you.
Look at that. Jake's specialty du jour, eggs erroneous. It's made with pounded eggs and 17 herbs and spices smuggled into this country by Tibetan monks. Ernest, I want you to cut yourself a big knock out of these eggs erroneous.
No, I can't eat on an empty stomach.
Well, of course you can. Eddie doesn't look at that rosy glow to his teeth.
No.
Oh, come on, Bill.
No.
Now, Ernest, would somebody dressed like this lie to you about food?
Fond as I am of Tibetan cooking, a hungry lion hunts best. Know what I mean?
Now, come on. Take your little bite.
No.
Come on, Bill.
No.
Open big.
No.
Come on.
No.
Ernest?
No.
Ernest?
No.
Ernest?
No.
Eddie? It's time for the plane to go to hangar.
Ow.
Rabbit over there? A rabbit, Jake. We could use a rabbit. Rabbit! That's it! A rabbit! A big fat rabbit with all of its shots!
Yeah. Yeah. Quick bit. Effective. Hilarious if you're in 4th or 5th grade.
Absolutely. So now we get to yet again, like the kids getting messed with because they go, this is pretty rough. So they go, everyone's swimming in the lake. The kids are all swimming. Moose does not know how to swim. So his own counselor decides to teach him the counselor's name is Stannis or something. So we're going to teach you to swim the Stannis way, which is just throw this kid in the fucking water. Like unconscionable. Ernest comes to fish him out, and which results in the kids deciding to topple over the lifeguard tower that Ernest had fixed, probably not well.
Yeah. And I think the Stannis method was first perfected by John Wayne. I don't know which Western it is, but, I'm sure you can find a film clip of John Wayne talking to a kid by a lake and the kid confessing he doesn't know how to swim. So John Wayne is just like, oh, we can fix that, and just throws the kid in the lake. And that was, if you were boomer or pre-boomer, that was the fix for how to get children to learn to swim. Damn near killing them.
Sink or swim is the method.
Sink or swim. Yeah.
Yeah. Not the method I chose to teach my kids to swim. we had them learn, in a way where they wouldn't die. We've decided that was better.
I think that's the smarter way.
Yeah, they didn't die, and they're very good swimmers. So it worked
there
out.
we go. We won.
But because of this, Stannis somehow hurts his leg in the process, and now they're down a counselor. So they need a new one, and Ernest happens to be kind of hanging around in the background of this meeting. And so he's finally going to get his big break to be a counselor. I love that they ask him his experience, and he's like, I had an ant farm once.
Oh, boy. Again, makes you very curious what world this man is coming from.
Yeah, there's a few things he says about his past, and I don't know if they're true or not. Ernest generally does not seem like a liar. So you have to sort of take these things at face value. So it's very odd once we learn some of these things about him. But anyway, so we cut to him with this gigantic backpack. He's going to lead the kids out into the forest in search of actual nature. And so they're still making fun of him. They think he's a loser.
Yeah.
And they're way out. And this is where I mentioned, you hear something about his past. So they're walking out in the woods, and he starts talking about how they were lost for weeks in Nam. Ernest Goes to Vietnam is a prequel they need to make.
It's a missed opportunity.
I mean, not too far off of Forrest Gump, I guess, in a way.
I was gonna say, yeah, Ernest, Bubba, and Forrest would make a great trio. That would be my recon team. I'm sending those guys in. I'm sending them in.
They may not be coming back.
They may not be coming back, but hearing Ernest make reference of Nam, it's very interesting. Are we watching the manifestations of his PTSD? Is that how
none of this is real? It's all Jacob's ladder. He fell off that ladder at the beginning of the movie. The dream. So now we cut to this quarry that's being demolished or blasting that's happening, and we meet Crater Industries. And so the lawyer is there. He's meeting with the scientists, and we find out, of course, that nearby is Camp Kikakee, and it's sitting on this mineral deposit that is highly valuable, whatever it is that they want to mine there. It's unobtainium, whatever it is. And we are told that they've tried. Sherman, who that is John Vernon's character, Sherman Crater, has made several attempts to get Chief St. Cloud to sell the land unsuccessfully. But he tells the lawyer, go to the camp, get me that lease. Nobody ever says, hey, is there any way to possibly mine this without destroying the land? We go inside. That's not an option. It's total destruction.
There's never a compromise. It's always, we got to buy it out and kick out, the rightful owners of the land. And I think it's a bit closer to reality, actually, if we're being honest.
In terms of what happened to the indigenous population, 1,000%. You're supposed to see Manhattan for $24 worth of beads or whatever is the story. We cut to Ernest in the forest. He is trying to make a fire the old-fashioned way by turning a stick round and round to make friction, which is great, except he's doing it on his thigh. Shades of Young Frankenstein, kind of, when he sticks the fork at himself.
It's one of my favorite scenes. I love that.
So good. And then we get one of probably what I thought as a kid was the funniest thing in the movie. Was he finds a family of badgers.
Boys, look. A family of badgers. Just as I promised you, actual nature. El Badgerus Maximus Ferocius with young. The young look just like the regular badgers, only smaller. Now there's a lesson to be learned. Although they look cute and cuddly, don't ever do this to a family of badgers.
and explains what you should not do to a
Yes.
family of badgers.
Which ends up being the wrong thing. And
Of course.
again, the setup, professorial, and yeah, makes for more fodder for the kids to think this guy is just a loser.
I love the timing on this. Like the conception of like, oh, don't do this to the badgers. It's just basically making a weird face at them and some weird noises. I don't know how else to describe this, but it's such a quick cut because it's only him doing it for like 3/4 of a second and then screaming, running, biting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really feel like a lot of this film was dependent on Jim Varney's improv. Like, hey, Jim, here's a scenario, and him being the professional he was. All right, yeah, just, I'm gonna, get a fake thing on me, and I'll run around and scream bloody murder, and I'll make it funny. I'm like, oh, yes, you will, Jim. Yes, you will.
Yeah. So after he is beset upon by the badgers, it's time to practice first aid, which is what you mentioned before. It's field dressing, but like he's in gauze like a mummy to the point where he can't breathe. So to allow him to breathe, they attach one end of the gauze to a vehicle. They drive it away. It pulls. He spins around.
Yeah, well. Yeah. I really feel like Adam Sandler learned a lot from Ernest.
Totally. Yeah. No, quite like Canteen Boy is kind of earnesty.
Exactly.
And then we get this phrase that's repeated throughout the movie whenever Ernest gets hurt, which is, well, at least nobody was hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, the kids are really mean-spirited. Like, I remember, and like even recently watching this, I'm like, I'm not won over by them yet. Like, Moose is instantly adorable and kind of an innocent, but the rest of the kids are just like, they are intentionally vindictive. They know they are hurting Ernest. And so for me, I'm not won over to their case at this point.
Yeah. No, it's going to take a little while for them to come around on Ernest. So we get this scene again of the lawyer trying to convince the chief to sell. He gives this very kind of stereotypical answer about, who can own a tree, who can own a rock, like this kind of classic stuff you would see. And I don't know how well all of that holds up in terms of representations of Indigenous Americans. I'm not qualified to talk about that.
Yeah.
But we find out they are the last members of the tribe, and this is their sacred land, and it's a no again.
Yeah.
So we cut back to Ernest, who's Bobby shows him this like switchblade, which I guess he's just allowed to have at camp, or is snuck in.
Yeah.
And he wets a stone to sharpen it. Ernest licks this stone, and I love this is another like him being professorial, and he like describes what he's doing, and he's so matter of fact about again, this is kind of the buzzsaw joke from UHF, but he you slowly move the knife at a 45-degree angle down into the meat of the hand.
Yes.
Hey, Bobby Wayne, see that? That is a real beauty. Let your buddy Ernest show you how to put a razor edge on that dog. How about it? First, you wet the stone. That's the hard part. Then you hold the knife at a perfect 45-degree angle and run it briskly down the stone and through the meat of the hand. There you go. Razor sharp. Is that a rabbit over there? Oh.
First aid.
First aid.
Yes.
Which leads to, by the way, yet again, first aid.
First aid. Another first aid scene. Not the worst first aid scene, but we will get there.
Yeah. And this is another moment when the car that from the beginning of the movie just goes driving by. Like they punctuate scenes with that. It's funny.
Yeah. The cart just has a mind of its own. It's almost inhabited by one of the mountain spirits.
Yeah, it's a good runner. So we go back to Jake and Eddie. They are making what they call lobster bisque.
Yes.
In this machine. I forget the name of the machine, but it's this enormous Muppet kind of device.
Yeah, kind of, it was, one of my favorite running gags particularly from this era, is like, any device and then attach to it like the name 2, 3, 4,000. And it's just like a big silver box with light bulbs and tubes and almost steampunk-esque in its constructive nature. And I'm like, who built this machine and what was its purpose? Because they're throwing in eggshells, they're throwing in things that aren't food. They have
live lobsters,
and of course the machine doesn't work and it goes haywire and just starts turns almost into a weapon.
Well, this is I don't know that it is going haywire. This may be exactly what it's supposed to do. Because they throw all of this shit literally uncooked pasta, like a puppet they throw in at one point to make fettuccine Alfredo. It's raw fettuccine and then a puppet they call Fredo. They throw
Fredo, yeah.
And whatever they throw in, slop, Nickelodeon glop comes out the other end, just not pouring out, but fired out with force.
Yeah, Nickelodeon slop was definitely the perfect way to coin the substances that come out of this machine. And that was, again, there was nothing funnier than someone being slimed, someone being, oh, that's so gross, lima beans, Brussels sprouts. These were the punchlines for kids in the 80s. These were the things we griped about, we considered gross. And if you throw corn chowder and lima beans on somebody, you got common material for days.
Yep. So we get some more physical stuff. Ernest is trying to light a lantern at night. He can't. He then gets it lit and it just fires off like a rocket into the air, which will become important later. And he then goes to meet the kids who are playing some kind of poker, and he decides to join the game. And yet again, I love the spiel he gives them about I'm going to give you a lesson in game. There I was, we were playing 5-card Mexican Guerrilla Sweat or something. He's got these games that don't make sense. Great improvising from him. Cut to him sadly, sheepishly walking away from this game. And I didn't do the math on what he said, but it's rough calculation. He's lost several $1,000s to these kids.
Yeah. Which I hope he doesn't have to pay. I think it's called even by the end of the film.
Yeah, I think that would be fair. But yeah, he does. You could calculate it if you wanted to, because he says something like, okay, $30 a week. I think, at that rate, I could pay you back in 14 years or whatever he says.
Yeah.
You could do the math if you wanted. So this is a rough scene. This lawyer goes to this family that is, I guess, living on property that's near the camp and the mine, that they have been told, I guess, they've already lost the rights to their property. They're still living there though.
Yeah.
And the lawyer tries to buy them a little more time. Crater says no, they need to leave now. And this family is basically beaten and thrown out of their little cabin or whatever it is. It's rough to watch.
Yeah. And I think the main enforcer is former NFL player Lyle Lozado, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah, and died, unfortunately, at a very early age of 43. I don't know if steroids played a part, but is very convincing and very scary as a heavy construction guy / henchman, and just beating up innocents. And it brings a soberness to the film of oh, this guy really is an evil land baron. He is ruthless, and there are consequences. So, yeah, interesting. Yeah, it is. It's hard to watch, but it's very real.
Yep. So Ernest does this. This is some more just Jim Varney bits by himself, but he sets up this machine to cook chickens on a rotisserie. He ends up getting his foot kind of caught in the strap he's using to manipulate the mechanism, which pulls his feet into the fire, and then he has to then sort of make his way over to the nearby lake and cool off, and then he just falls face first in the water.
Yes. another best intentions lead to severe injury.
Yeah.
For anyone else, not for Ernest, but at least to severe humiliation.
Right. So now we get this another camp-wide meeting where the head counselor tells them that each cabin at the camp, they don't have to, but they can make a project that somehow reflects the native heritage of Camp Kikakee, and that the winner, I forget what the winner gets, but there's going to be a winner.
Yeah.
And Ernest then tries to encourage his group of kids to participate, and they're pretty negative. They basically say they won't even let us win.
Yeah,
which is not unreasonable for them to say at this point.
No, and this starts to let some light in on who these kids are, and starts to let the audience soften a little bit towards them and feel empathy towards these kids.
But not yet, because Moose.
But not quite. Sorry,
Yeah.
The window is cracked open, but
yeah, Moose is the only one who's peeking through the window at this point.
yeah, Moose is the only one peeking through. Ernest gives them a great speech, which I thought was actually a great legitimate life lesson.
Yeah, because the kids say they could quit, and Ernest is like, "Quit? Like that's not in his vocabulary."
Right. Which again, like, leads you to understand that, oh, this is a special adult. This is like a real caring, deep, emotionally wise. I would say Ernest is emotionally wise and intelligent character.
So he has this like picnic lunch with the St. Clouds, which ends in him getting chomped on by fire ants and sent again to the infirmary. The boys bring him a present to cheer him up, which is of course poison
ivy. And again they turn into little shit rats, and they give it a good talking to by the nurse, and I truly, I think, begin to feel guilty for how horribly they treated Ernest, but he's so happy that they visited him, when he's in the nurse's office, and he's so happy to receive the gift. It's so sad. It's so sad.
Well, yeah, and what she says is so right, which is like, you have nobody in your corner except this guy, and this is how you treat him,
Right.
Yeah, so that I think that lesson lands though.
It does.
Because we get this moment again, Ernest talking to the camera. At least you think it's the camera, but he's sort of saying, well, geez, the harder I try, the worse things get. I like the boys, but I'm not sure they like me. And we realize he's talking to Pokey the turtle, who also mistreats Ernest by just clamping onto his nose.
Clamping on that nose. Yeah.
Seems like the harder I try, the worse things get. I like the boys, but I don't think they like me. Mr. Tipton's chewed me out twice. I guess I had it coming, but it's still no fun, know what I mean? This counselor business is harder than I thought. But it's what I want to do. Come on, Pokey. I need to talk to somebody. I know you're dormant and cold-blooded and all that, but... Ow! Ow! Oh, Pokey! Ow! You heartless beast! Ow! Oh! Pokey, my sinuses, Pokey! Oh, you said you'd never do this again! Ow! Ow!
Hey, Ernest! You got a turtle in your nose, man!
Oh, no. It's a zit. It comes back every now and then.
Hey, come on, fellas. We can jerk that sucker off there in just a second.
No. The only way to get him off is to sing him to sleep.
Okay, guys, come on. Okay. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3.
Remember me and you and me. No matter how they toss the dice, it had to be the only one.
The turtle's got its nature, but it will also serve a purpose. Everything at this camp will serve a purpose for Ernest. Again, pennies in that piggy jar,
There's a lot of Chekhov's gun happening with stuff too.
Yes.
As this stuff goes on. Because the kids come in and they say they can jerk the turtle loose from his nose, and he says, no, you have to sing him to sleep.
Sing it,
So
yeah.
they sing "So Happy Together."
Yeah.
By the Turtles is the name of the band. So
very smart. See what you guys are doing.
Yep. And that song is kind of the unofficial song of the movie. Like it's built into the score as well. So we get
It's also for me a very camp. Like I've been to camp, and that was the song. No matter what camp I was at, wake up in the morning and you get, when they round us up for breakfast, like that would be bland. And like I associate that song with camp. So yeah, to me it was a natural choice.
Yeah, and I listened to a lot of oldies and stuff growing up, so I may have heard the song here and there, but I do most strongly associate it with this movie. All right, so we get another scene of the St. Clouds talking to the lawyer. Again, they tell him no.
Yes.
And we get to the jocks, and they're making a kayak, and our kids kind of roll up, and they're like, "Oh, we're making something. You'll see what it is." They haven't done anything at this point, but they decide they're gonna make a teepee, and this is where they start kind of pulling together as a group.
And we get some cool montages of building the teepee, a great 80s montage.
Yep. And this is kind of sad though that they ask him, gee, maybe if we win this contest, we can stay here forever and not have to go back to the institute. And Ernest is like, well, it's not up to me.
Yeah.
Moose, recreating a genuine Indian artifact is not just another handicraft. It is a art.
Ernest, do you think if we win this contest, we can stay here forever and not have to go back to that old institute?
Well, if it was up to me, Moose, you'd stay right here from now on.
Is it up to you? I didn't think so.
Very real, but very sad. Like, and you get and again, it opens that window. Like, oh, what is going on for these kids at the institute?
Yeah,
like, their life is hard, and so making like things start to make sense. Like the one person who's nice to them in the corner, they probably never experienced that before, so their reaction is mistrust and hostility.
But not anymore, because I think after this point they really are more. They finally get it that like Ernest is, in their corner, and they accept that. So we cut to Sherman, who is just shooting glass bottles just to prove, I guess, he is a good marksman, which will be important later. He's told that again the St. Clouds are not selling, and he decides now they need to escalate things.
Well, it's no use talking to the old Indian. I mean, the old guy can't stop talking about the old ways. Spirits, this kind of voodoo mumbo-jumbo. Sherman, you don't understand. The old guy will not listen to reason. I mean, who can own a tree?
What?
Nothing.
You just haven't tried hard enough. Money talks.
We get a quick moment of the head counselor. Both he and St. Cloud notice that this teepee is coming together. Like, hey, the boys in earnest. It's actually kind of working. But the jocks are also spying on them. And we get to a fun moment where they're now telling ghost stories around the campfire.
Yeah.
And Ernest tries to tell a story about the guy with the hook for a hand.
Yeah. Again, endearing what he finds to be terrifying. These other kids just find to be corny and boring. I forget which hijinks happened at this moment. I know it does go horribly awry, but I can't remember exactly what happens in this moment.
It's just that the story kind of goes off the rails a little bit with Ernest, because then they ask the chief to tell a story who was there.
And he tells the story of, that's right, he tells the story of recalling the beginning of the film. And the story lands. It lands with the kids. They're all really inspired.
Well, anybody else have an interesting story? Chief, can you tell us a big story?
Hansina, go Wenza, Kosa here. We can't be Ota, Nina Dakota.
I speak to the young braves so that they may know of the old ways.
Wale, Dima, Gashke, Gishke, Gawanama.
I speak to them so that they may know what this ground holds of the spirits of the past.
We can't be Ota, Nina Dakota, Pezuta Wakahitanye, Otaka Naye, Ajia.
When a young brave was ready to become a warrior, it was here that he was called by the wise men and the elders.
Wahali, Gogoshne, Tuzo.
If he had faith in the Great One, the knife would not cut him.
Agayot, Utawa Nawe.
If he had courage, true courage, the rock would not break him.
Malane, Waga, Musa, Musa Namene.
If the brave was pure of heart, the arrow could not catch him.
Nuwa, Bayotewa, Ushne Kaume.
And then he would become a warrior, as someday you will. And that was called the ceremony of the blade, the stone, and the arrow.
Like in our culture, paper, rock, scissors.
And, you know, and want to be the true warrior. Want to test their mettle like the warrior in the story.
Yeah, it shows you these kids are reachable. And it's like, I think you need that, not just for the movie, but just kind of as a general approach to life. It's like, don't assume people are unreachable. Like, you need the right touch.
Yeah.
But this is where things go wrong. They come back to find that their tepee has been completely immolated. And there's I think a fight ensues here.
Yes.
So Ernest is told the boys are out of control. He's failing as a counselor. They're going to send them back, but he pleads for one more chance.
Yeah, which is really stand up for him. And again, gets me thinking, who is Ernest? Where does he come from? I feel like he sees himself in these kids, really trying to be a surrogate father, a father figure. And it makes what's about to happen even more bittersweet, or not even bittersweet, but sad.
Well, he does this great thing, which is like, he goes and tells the kids basically, hey, I saved your bacon. You're not getting kicked out of camp, and you should do your best always. And he actually inspires them to go rebuild the thing.
Yeah.
Which is like great. Like, their attitude shift is amazing, where all of a sudden they're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to let them keep me down. I am going to rebuild this thing that we worked so hard on. And they just get to it. Whereas at the beginning of the movie, they would have been much more like defeatist.
Yeah, no, he reaches them. But it's Ernest's personal moment of defeat is the moment I'm talking about.
Well, we're about to get there, because Sherman again approaches the chief and personally tells him he'll double the money, sweetens the pot. Chief says no. As he's walking away, Ernest is walking up, and he tells Ernest, hey, I'm here essentially on behalf of the environment. We've got this petition. Convince him, you speak his language, convince him to sign the piece of paper, not telling Ernest what the piece of paper actually is, which is signing the rights away.
Yeah, it's so evil. It's so evil.
Yeah, 1,000% evil. Also, it would never stand up in court, which is why, of course, at the end, it doesn't. You can it's a lie. So,
and that's why I'm happy to be talking to a lawyer. I'm like, there's so many moments in 80s movies where, an audience would just kind of, but now if you're an actual lawyer, that wouldn't actually stand up in court.
No, it's not. You don't have a true contract because the person didn't. It was literally in a foreign language to him, and so he didn't understand it.
Didn't understand the terms and conditions.
Right. But anyway, so yes, Ernest unwittingly convinces the chief to sign. Cut immediately to the head counselor giving this announcement. Well, it's a sad day for the camp. Camp's over in 48 hours. Everybody's got to move out. And like, you see, like, Ernest, as he's explaining this, what happened, he's like, you can see on his face of like, uh-oh, I did this.
realizes,
Yeah.
really lets the daughter of the chief down.
Well, she says there's only two people here who
Yeah.
know how to speak to him, and you're the other one. So
Yeah.
he's like, this is a big misunderstanding. I'll fix it. And so they decide he and the kids are like, the kids don't want to go back to the institute either, so they're gonna stick around and fight for it. And he gives this whole spiel about how his hands are, are concealed deadly weapons and stuff.
Yeah. And then, like, by this point, like, the kids, like you said, they are fully on his side. Ernest is a hero almost at this point now. And so, they're all revved up and raring to go and go to confront, our villains. Ernest doesn't stand a chance against, the Brownsville, Brooklyn-born fucking Lyle Alzado. Like, it's just not gonna go his way.
No, he gets his ass handed to him.
Yeah,
And
bad.
it's comical at first, but not for like after a while. Like it just looks like a real ass beating. It's because again, this is Ernest. Like we've watched him take all manner of physical punishment, but like cartoon punishment, not like a human being just punching him in the face.
Yeah, but it's still brutal, and it's still really sad because the guy, like the kids are cheering, and then they're watching. They are watching, like, this adult get assaulted, and unlike all the other injuries that Ernest has endured in the film, these punches land. Or not even just but the humiliation of it, and the humiliation of his own hand in this. And so, after he's beaten, and he has this scene where you kind of see who the real Ernest is. And it's really sad. But it works because I think Jim Varney is such a good actor, where he's able to find this vulnerable part of Ernest and not play it for laughs.
Yeah. Actually, it's there's a sad thing that precedes this, which is as he's lying on the ground, Moose comes up to him and says, I believe in you, Ernest, but there are some things you can't do nothing about. Like that plays right into their, their old worldview, which is like, we suck, the world sucks, you can't do anything about it.
I'm small, the bullies are bigger. Yeah.
And and then that next thing that you were talking about, where he's in the infirmary now, being treated for these wounds, and he's talked about, he's this guy who has nothing in the world, like this is the one thing he has, and now it's going away.
Yeah, it's really sad. It's like, I don't like using the term, they wouldn't do this today, but it's like, I feel like, Ernest would have at least more of a backstory today or something. But this character literally, maybe even homeless without the camp. Like, there's a big implication that's the case. And so, yeah, when you see him defeated, it's like, oh, wow, this is the real world encroaching in on this cartoon kind of reality that Ernest has built, and the bubble gets popped. It's not a good time.
And then we get a musical number, because we start hearing this song, Gee, I'm Glad It's Raining. And at first I'm like, oh, okay, a song. And then I'm like, is that Jim Varney's voice? Is he singing the song? And then we got to, he is singing. Like, we actually see him like mouthing the song as he's singing it, which is this sad song about how things are going badly.
Niece kid, it's everything to me. I was a counselor. I had everything. And now it's all gone.
There's always something to be thankful for. I'm awfully glad it's raining, 'cause no one sees your teardrops when it pours. And no one knows the thunder is your heartbreak in disguise. They think the rainy nights what put that sad look in your eyes. Sure am glad it's raining. The gentle rhythm soothes the pain inside. I'm glad this
Yeah.
And what struck me, I was like, this sounds sort of familiar. And it's because that first sequence of notes, it's, gee, I'm glad it's raining. Da, 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 da. It's the same as the other, one of the other saddest songs in the world, which is When She Loved Me from Toy Story 2.
Oh, wow.
When somebody loved me, everything was beautiful. Like that moment in that movie that's also a tearjerker. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it's the same little melodic line.
Oh,
So there must
wow.
be something mathematically about that sequence of notes that's like, this will make you feel bad.
I bet. Yeah. I wonder who wrote the lyrics.
It's not Randy Newman who wrote the second one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, but we see he's singing to Pokey is who he's singing to.
Yes.
The turf. So oof.
Yeah, it's a wise move to put this in the film because it adds another layer to the film and makes the third act, the ending of the third act, that much sweeter.
And that's where we're about to go because St. Cloud comes and tells the kids they got to leave. You know, they got to start packing up like everybody else. They don't want to. And so the kids come in to see him, to see Ernest. And he's like, well, no more Counselor Ernest. And they kind of give him the kick in the pants he needs. Say, okay, you know, path of the brave, right? We're gonna beat them and run them off the land and get a little bit rowdy, and they're gonna fight back.
Yeah.
And so now we get the Home Alone preparation montage.
We get the Home Alone preparation montage, and we get to see the actual proof that Ernest probably was a war vet because he teaches these kids guerrilla warfare that they use. They build a tank. They build an assault vehicle,
a rocket launcher.
They got
a catapult or not a catapult. What's the other one called? The
is it a trebuchet?
That's it, a trebuchet. Yeah, I think it might be a trebuchet.
Yeah, like they get air support from the turtles. Like this is an effective like guerrilla war campaign against a corporate entity, a hostile corporate entity, and it's a great sequence. Like it's where I think the majority of the film's budget goes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it's always I'm a sucker for it's very similar. The contraptions are very similar to the contraptions of the third act of Hook, when the Lost Boys have all these chickens that shoot eggs, egg launchers, and I'm a sucker for kids versus adults, and kids' ingenuity and fun beats the brutality and or viciousness of adults.
Yep.
And seeing these adults running around not knowing how to react or respond to this, but it's not my favorite moment. That comes later.
Okay, we'll get to it. But yeah, so we have this montage of them getting ready. They're like stealing a box of like smoke bombs, like a big crate of them. I don't know what that's doing, whether the construction company needs smoke bombs or the camp needs them, but they're there. They're there. So, but then everyone kind of joins the fight. Like the jocks roll up that have been giving them a hard time, and they're like, you know what? We don't want our camp destroyed, so we're with you guys.
Yeah.
We get Jake and Eddie. They bring out their slot firing machine.
Yeah.
And the chief is there, and they have this scene of them lining up, and they're putting war paint on, and the daughter tries to like talk them out of it, like, don't do this. And Ernest is like, nope.
She's being legitimately, she's like, you're putting children in danger.
Right.
And Ernest doesn't hear it. Nope, I got my ass beat in front of them, so we're all in. We're all in.
Hey yo, hey yo.
Grandfather, you can't do this. These are children. Ernest, are you crazy? Those are grown men out there. You don't stand a chance.
They ain't gonna get this camp.
We can't win this fight without legal help.
They ain't gonna get this camp.
They ain't gonna get this camp, as he repeats, like with deadly seriousness. So she decides she's gonna go and get legal help, which is probably the right way to go.
Yes.
So we see them drawing up a plan, and I like how this starts where like Ernest is kind of like directing traffic at first. He's not on the front lines, but he's like waving a flag to like signal to the others to do their part. The first part of which is just to play this record of weird sound effects, which is just confusion, just straight up confusion.
He's a great general in the field.
They fire flaming arrows into the tent where everyone's eating lunch. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
Followed by everybody getting pelted with food from the whatever 2000 machine, and the chief is shooting what looks like tennis balls at them from like one of those little like practice machines where you put tennis balls in it.
Yeah.
And then shit starts to get into like more heavy artillery.
Yeah, they launch all manner of things at these kids. Could possibly seriously maim and or kill one of these. For the outside of Lyle, the other adults are just doing the job. Like no one else is really kind of a bully. They all just seem to be construction guys.
I just work for this mine. I show up where they tell me.
Yeah, I'm just like I'm trying to pay my bills and raise my kids like anybody else, earn a living. It gets pretty serious.
Well, like some of the projectiles, like one is that toilet from the beginning of the movie comes
flying. That's right.
And it's full of something that explodes.
And yeah, Ernest does his great jaw kind of moving side to side.
Yep. We get the lanterns that Ernest launched into the air before. He's got like 5 of them in a row or whatever, and they're just firing off like missiles. And then, as you said, death from above with the turtles on parachutes that land and bite people in the nose.
Yeah, multiple turtles, which seems to be the most effective weapon and gets people really screaming and pandemonium. And it's an effective war campaign.
Yeah. So then the workers call Crater to let him know, shit's going down. And he says he's putting an end to this. And he goes and he grabs his rifle, which is pretty serious escalation. And now we get the kids driving their war machine versus this bulldozer that we've watched just wreck cabin after cabin. And so even though they try to like serpentine or whatever, the bulldozer destroys their makeshift I don't even know what to call it. They got war machine, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's their war machine. It doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah, so the bulldozer keeps coming, and now it's time to unleash the most powerful substance known to man, eggs erroneous.
Yes. Is that what takes Lyle down finally?
Yes, it's the eggs erroneous. Ernest drives, so they find the car drives up that's been driving around by itself the entire movie, and it like comes to a stop, and that's when he gets the idea. He puts canisters of the eggs erroneous on the cart. Ernest drives it towards the bulldozer. He dives off, and the cart drives itself into the bulldozer, and colossal explosion.
Yes, it's an incredible stunt. It's you've seen the game of chicken in many an action movie, but this may be the best.
It's again, this is a substance that in theory is supposed to be food,
right?
But is also capable of detonating 50 megatons or whatever.
It's also close in its chemical composition to C4,
right? So and as a kid, by the way, I didn't know the word erroneous, so that just sounded so weird to me. I thought they were saying eggs erroneous, like it was an alien food.
Eggs erroneous.
Yep. So Crater comes in, everyone's celebrating the destruction of this bulldozer, but he's got a fucking gun. And
Yes.
so they scatter, and he just says, I'm going to kill Ernest.
Point blank, no like outside of the provocation of these kids, trying to stop, the demolishing of their camp. This man gets out of his car and just starts shooting a rifle at Ernest.
He's got a gun! Hurry up, you guys! Come on, hurry up! Come on! Look out, Ernest! Get out of the way!
If he had faith in the Great One, the knife would not cut him.
He missed. I can't believe he missed.
If he had courage, true courage, the rock would not break him. If the brave was pure of heart, the arrow could not catch him.
Paper, rock, scissors.
Looks like this one's out of your hands, Crater.
And of course, each of the 3 bullets misses as he shoots, and he like takes a step closer, shoots again, misses, like even from like point blank range, and misses because this is intercut with like the dialogue about the ancient ritual, that because he's pure of heart and brave and everything else, the projectiles will miss Ernest no matter what.
Yeah, and Ernest becomes Camp Neo. Like, he is the one. He is the foretold Messiah for this camp. Come back with powers now, and is truly indestructible.
Yeah, and it's not like the bullets like ricochet off him. You never hear like a choo, like it's just there's a gunshot and nothing happens.
No, it's like I don't know if you've ever seen Book of Eli with Denzel Washington, where like he's just, until he accomplishes his mission, he is incapable of being harmed. Yeah, Ernest has the spirits of the camp looking out for him, and he's incapable of being harmed.
There's an old Jewish tradition that supposedly you should always keep money on you that you are planning to deliver, that you deliver to charity. You should actually, of course, give the charity, not just as a token to put money in your pocket. But the idea there's a concept that like, oh, well, God will not let you be harmed if you're on your way to deliver charity to somebody. So I've heard that superstition before, and like there's a little bit of that here, honestly.
Love
like,
that.
Yeah, it's a nice idea. But Ernest just like literally again point blank range misses, and he puts his finger in the gun. Maybe very hippie style, right? Not a flower, but yeah, a child of the 60s. Ernest is. He puts his finger in the gun, and at which point Sherman just like panics and runs, because if I saw that happen, I would not know how else to explain it other than God does not want me to have this land.
Yeah, no, it's a real he has a real mental breakdown. And I love again, trying to construct the mystery that is Ernest P. Worrell's history, right? If this guy is really You know, from his age, definitely a child of the 60s. But if he fought for Nam, but then goes full circle to putting his finger in the gun, almost like putting a flower in the gun barrel, like it's a very powerful moment.
Yeah.
And to me, that is what solidified this movie being a cinematic masterpiece. Was it turned this nobody whose greatest aspiration was to just be a camp counselor into this camp demigod? God.
Right. So yeah, then at this point, the police all come rushing in, and we find out that a judge issued a restraining order to stop the takeover of the camp, and everything's okay. The score is playing "So Happy Together," and we got back to Ernest back up on this sign with a ladder. Everything's okay. The camp now has a year-round counselor in Ernest. He falls off the ladder again and he pulls the rope, which is not detached this time, but because it's not detached, it just pulls the entire sign on top of him. And at least nobody was hurt.
At
And
least nobody was hurt.
So we pan up. The car is still driving around. It's like a smoking wreck, but it's still driving around, which is a nice thing. And so we get credits, but then we also get this like mid credits sequence of Jake and Eddie trying to cook, and Jake feeds Eddie whatever it is he's making against his will, and it turns him into this like handsome tuxedoed opera singer. Real weird.
Very weird. Very weird. I appreciate they were swinging for the fences. And pre-Marvel movie stings, they're like, all right, what do we got here? And this is what they came out with. And if you're 8 to 9 or 10 years old, it's comedy gold.
Yeah. I was trying to find information about the production of this movie. That's very little online that I could find. I was trying to find out, how much of this is like stuff they wrote or improvised and then just putting in the can, scenes like this, because there's so many bits that are just like you could just sort of cut them out as being standalone comedy beats or physical routines, like almost
Mhm.
Marx Brothers-esque routines.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, how many of these things they shot and then didn't end up using. That said, since a lot of that stuff comes back in the final battle sequence, there must be at least a lot of it that was mapped out. So I couldn't find out what the balance was, but it sure feels like they did a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking, the budget said it's 3.5 million. So for the 80s, that's like a significant amount. They made 23.5 million at the box office, so made their money back and then some. So I imagine like with a $3.5 million budget, a lot of the stuff was mapped out. And I imagine they had a good production schedule to like, all right, what are some things we can throw up on the wall? What's like some great B-roll we can get? Because it's not a complicated movie. You're working with kids, so their hours are, you don't have all day to work with them, but you do have all day to like do extra stuff with these adult actors who are gonna not say no to the overtime. So that's just me from my professional like trying to figure out like, all right, they probably had enough time with Ernest, with Jim Varney and these other actors to like, all right, let's get a sketch or two out here and see, for when the credits roll or yeah.
Yeah. Well, here we are at the end of the movie and coming to the end of the podcast. So I'll ask you, Tarik, what we always kind of ask is like, why do you think it is that people still love this movie, almost what, 35 or so years later? Here we are, and like there were all these Ernest movies, and this character is beloved by a lot of people of a certain age. Why does Ernest have this kind of staying power?
First answer your first question about this movie. I think this movie is more. The other Ernest movies become more cartoony, and don't get. This gets to the most human aspect of Ernest, and there I say Jim Varney. And so I think this film has a particular place in people's hearts due to that. I really think Jim Varney, you can't give enough credit to his characterization of this character, and it's a lovable, innocent, non-malicious goofball. And in this time where we're living right now, I don't want to get too political, but there are campaigns going on right now, and I can see some people gravitating towards the idea of like, oh wow, non-toxic men, right? Like non-problematic men who care, men who emote, men who are joyful warriors, as Ernest P. Worrell becomes at the end of this film. He is a joyful warrior protecting children and land. And those may seem like corny or trite concepts, but they are the things that really like hit the heartstrings. Um, and then this, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's just a delightful, well shot film. Um, I truly mean it when I meant like this is a cinematic masterpiece. This film was not, going for any Oscars, but it comes at a time. I know you live in LA. I'm an actor. I know so many people who are in LA right now who are actors who have had to move away and or can't afford their rent, their health insurance. The movie industry has taken a huge hit. And I think a part of that is, in the past 10 years, movie studios they don't invest in films that have smaller than $90 million budgets. It's like $90 million and above. This film was made for $3.5 million. And everyone, I guarantee you, from the director to the first assistant to like the gaffer, everyone was a pro, because it was the small films that kept the ecosystem of filmmaking in Hollywood going. Small films where people could cut their teeth. Ask anyone who worked for Roger Corman, and they'll tell you like, oh, how much they learned and how many people he employed. And you can see the benefits of the ecosystem watching Ernest Goes to Camp. You can see those benefits of like, oh, how it's edited, how it's shot, the sound. The sound is incredible. Like everyone knew what they were doing because people were working regularly and were able to give even a small $3.5 million film the polish that it deserved. And I think that's another reason why it lasts, like, because it's like, wow, this is just the quality of this film. They don't make films like that anymore because that ecosystem is taking a hit. And I'm hopeful that it comes back, but that's my answer as to why that film and why Ernest, like the kids and like Ernest, this is a film that could easily be thrown away, but it has a lot of heart in it, and there's a lot of care there, and it's not thrown away. We all need something like that.
Yeah, I think all of your points about kind of the business side of it are 100% valid. I think that there's also kind of a missing space now for kind of this childlike thing. This because the last round of movies about childlike protagonists were like all these Judd Apatow movies in the 2000s, and it was all about this irresponsible man child, Steve Carell, Seth Rogen, whoever it is, Paul Rudd. They got to start getting their shit together and acting their age, right? That's what the thrust of those movies are. And there has not been a character like, like you said, we rattled off a bunch of them. They're kind of an endangered species. We don't have a place for something that is this whimsical and silly, but also sincere. Like we mentioned Home Alone, like Home Alone is another thing where like, cartoon logic, kid versus burglars, not terribly dissimilar from something like this. I can't think of any movies that try stuff like that. Any movie that speaks to kids on their level without
No,
being stupid. You know, like
yeah,
it's
no, that's a great point. And I think there's a self-consciousness, an embarrassment to because we think we're too sophisticated. We think kids are too sophisticated. You know, again, like, yeah, you're dead on about the Judd Apatow. Yeah, you gotta, knocked up. Like the whole message of that is getting Seth Rogen's character, like, yeah, you gotta grow up. And as opposed to Ernest Goes to Camp of like, you can be an adult who hasn't lost that light, who hasn't had it beat out of him, who says no to, I'm just gonna throw myself into the gears of the machine of mundane, humdrum adult life. No, I have a zest for it. I'm willing to play these games. I'm willing to get hurt for it. Like there's something braver to that to me. And there's a lack of bravery for that.
as you sort of mentioned, this podcast will probably come out after the election, so I don't know how it turns out yet. But I mean, look at Tim Walz. Like that's basically his whole deal.
I mean, that's yeah. I didn't want to say it, but yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, absolutely.
If like he turns to camera and says, "Know what I mean, Vern?" Like it would not feel out of place. You know,
It wouldn't feel out
he's
of
got
place.
that energy.
He's got that energy, and you can see again. We don't know how the election will turn out, but you can just see how the reception specifically that Tim Walz is getting, because it's reminding people, even people you would think like, oh, they weren't around. Like, no, it's an inherent human thing, and that I watched the DNC last night, and he gave his speech. This is the day after he gave his speech when so when this podcast airs. But when his son one stands up and starts crying and starts exclaiming, like, that's my dad. And his football team is behind him. And I played football. And my dad was my coach, right? Like, I look fondly on those days because the whole neighborhood was involved. And there are people, my dad was my dad and my football coach, but he was also a dad to so many people who played football on that team who didn't have dads, and pick them up and drop them off. And my dad didn't know. It was just something he did. He didn't know until they were young men, and they would tell him how important he was in their life. And I was lucky. He was there all the time. I was over it. I was like, oh yeah, my dad, the football coach, right? But to have somebody like that run for president or vice president, to have someone like that in one of the highest offices in the United States, to have somebody like that on such a public stage, it's a big deal.
You know what it is everybody wants essentially what Ernest is in this movie. They want someone, no matter how low down the chain they are, or whether they're running for the second highest office in the country, like someone who like genuinely is like, I believe in you and you're going to be awesome. That encouraging voice. And I think that, that because that heart is in this movie, that is what makes this whole thing work. Because if you didn't have that, it would still be some entertaining cartoon bullshit. But as you said, like this is why this is probably better than any of the other Ernest movies, is because it has this is this true secret ingredient to eggs erroneous.
True secret ingredient is heart. Yeah. And the lack of selfishness. Ernest isn't asking for anything outside of just, hey, can I have an opportunity to reach these kids? And like that's, yeah, I mean, it's the thing that we got too cool for school for. And I think bringing it to Walz is brilliant, because if anything, what we're seeing, hey, too cool for school, what it gets you isn't, it's not nice.
It's empty.
It's empty. And yeah, we need to get back to a place where as adults, as human beings, as Americans, where we are not just thinking of ourselves, but thinking of our neighbors, the big picture, and the kids who follow us.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave this. So, Tarik, if people want to find your stuff, where do they go?
You can find me on the socials, Tarik R. Davis. That's TARIK DAUAS. I'm on, still call it Twitter. I am on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me there. And as for my short film, we'll be making announcements as to where you'll be able to view that very soon. So watch this space.
And I will put a link to the trailer for it in the show notes, so you can check it out and learn more about this awesome thing that you've made. If you want to get in touch with us, of course, we're on all the socials as well. Just look for Nostalgium Arcanum and your social network of choice. You'll find it. The links to that are all in the show notes. This is normally where I talk about what episodes you just heard recently and which ones are coming up, but I'm recording this way in advance and out of order, so I'm not 100% sure, but you're hearing it in November most likely, and I know one of our other episodes for that is The World Is Not Enough. I just don't know if this one's coming out first or second compared to that one. So yeah, lots of fun stuff still in the laboratory. We're cooking up and trying to work on some Christmas things as well that you'll hear in December. So that's kind of it for this episode. One other thing, of course, if you like the show, go drop it a review wherever you found it. That actually makes a big difference in terms of the algorithm that governs how we live and die. But in particular, what you hear. Also, word of mouth is very, very appreciated as well. So with that, man, Tarik, thanks again. This is another great discussion. Love having you here.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. So until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgium Arcanum.
If I'd have known this was going to be the last time me and Bubba was going to talk, I'd have thought of something better to say.
Hey, Bubba. Hey, Forrest.
Hey, Vern.
Forrest. What just happened?
You got shot.
Look what I found in my daddy's closet. You know, I bet you this is from the big one. You know, WW2. Boy, I bet them were some great times.
Then, Bubba said something I won't ever forget.
I want to go home.
I know, because I never miss Hogan's Heroes on WDBJ7.
Bubba was my best good friend. And even I know that ain't something you can find just around the corner. Bubba was gonna be a shrimp and boat captain, but instead he died right there by that river in Vietnam.
You know what, Schultz and Hogan and Commandant Klink? Hogan's Heroes, weekdays on your hometown station. You know, Vern, this must be some kind of a cigarette lighter. I know nothing. I see nothing.